The Remote Viewer, Between Worlds, by Agata El Mrabet. She was found in the forest, estimated to be 6 years old. Seated in full lotus, eyes open, unblinking. Stillness so complete the medics thought she was dead. Until she turned her head and looked directly at them. Not a single word, not a single tremble. The temperature had dropped below freezing that night. She wore no shoes, no coat, and yet her skin was warm to the touch. There were no missing persons reports, no birth certificate, no fingerprints, no name, just a child, silent in the trees, as if she had been waiting a very long time to be found. She never spoke about that day, not when they carried her out, not in the years that followed. She was claimed by a program without a name, buried under layers of clearance and unacknowledged corridors, where children were not raised, but reconfigured. They studied her first: blood work, neural mapping, psychological probes. She did not blink under flashing lights. She did not flinch when shouted at. She had no known language, yet understood several. During sleep, her brainwave patterns were unreadable. Machines near her often glitched, surged, or shut down completely. They couldn't define what she was, so they trained her. Remote viewing, quantum orientation, field resonance calibration, biometric control, psychospiritual containment. She learned to observe without being seen, to slip between layers of reality, not through imagination, but through embodiment. While others followed protocol, she moved by signal. Where others reached outward, she dissolved inward. They taught her detachment. She taught herself disappearance. Her face unreadable, her presence unsettling. Some said being near her felt like standing at the edge of something vast and unnamed. Others avoided her completely. By 17, she could stop her heart for over 4 minutes, not as a stunt, as a shift in frequency. By 20, her psychological evaluations came back blank. No standard metrics could capture her anymore. She was not reacting, she was responding. And sometimes, not even responding, simply witnessing. She became archive, subject Delta C. To Harrow, one of her few trainers who dared to look deeper, she was simply ARC. Not because she carried information, but because she remembered it before it was ever written. Yet even she didn't know what she truly was. Not then. It began during meditation. Stillness deepened, breath slowed, heartbeat softened, and then a pull. Not psychic, not physical. Something more ancient, older than sensation, deeper than energy. She slipped into spaces with no light and no sound, yet vibrating with intelligence. Structures beyond thought. Cities made of resonance, beings not born of matter, older than any human mythology, and always, he was there. Not in voice, not in body, but in the ache behind her chest when the silence grew too deep, in the flicker of gold behind her eyelids before return. She didn't understand then. She only knew something inside her had begun to reconvene itself. Eventually, she left the program, not formally. No resignation, no goodbye. She simply disappeared between protocols, between access points, leaving no trace. But she didn't retreat into the wilderness alone as the rumors would one day suggest. She didn't vanish into some hidden mountain, barefoot and unseen by all. She remained within the architecture of the classified world, embedded inside a base hidden beneath an abandoned airfield, layered in silence, buried under 7 levels of earth and steel, a place without windows, without clocks, where time was something measured by field stability, not sunrises. Her only true companion was a black dog named Orin, who found her once and never left. Not a pet, not a guard, something older, something that recognized her before she recognized herself. She lives within the hum of underground corridors, the charged silence of sensor grids, the discipline of daily breathwork, stillness, calibration. Where others sleep in barracks, she sleeps in a bare room with a single thin mat and a small weighted blanket. She trains in soundproof halls, moves through silent observation rooms, slides between protocols like water moving through stone. The personnel around her know little of her real history. Some whisper she was designed, not born. Some believe she interfaces with systems beyond human comprehension. A few still place bets about whether she ever smiles. They don't know that she is not waiting for them. She is waiting for something older, something beneath the surface of the world itself. They don't know that when she closes her eyes, she doesn't sleep. She navigates the lattices of field architecture woven beneath time. They don't know that the pulse of ancient structures calls to her, and that she has already answered. They don't know that she slips through veils while they rest in dreamless sleep. She is not a myth. She is not a ghost. She is not a prophet. She is a node, a gate. Chapter 1. Protocols of the Unseen. She had the kind of presence that people noticed even when she didn't move. Slender, almost fragile in frame, yet composed like a drawn bow. Energy held in stillness, precision behind silence. Her hair was pale gold, always tied back in a loose braid that looked accidental but never moved out of place. Her eyes, icy blue, like something forged beneath polar ice, never lingered too long on anyone. But when they did, it felt like being scanned by something not entirely human. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her voice carried no emotional modulation. Not cold, but clear, like water untouched by wind. She had no official name in the program. They called her Subject Delta 7, but one of the trainers, a man named Harrow, called her Ark. The facility was underground, 7 levels deep beneath a retired airbase. No windows, no clocks, no distractions. Each day began with silence, not meditation, containment, sensory isolation. 30 minutes submerged in darkness and soundproofing until the mind began to invent. Then came breathwork, not for calm, for attunement. The kind that changed brainwave frequency, low theta, borderline delta, the edge state, the gate. Then they gave her numbers, not phone numbers, not coordinates she understood. Just strings. 701563, 289904. She was told to lie down, to close her eyes, and to let the number open the door. That's how remote viewing started. They never told her what to see, only to describe. Images, impressions, textures, sounds, emotions. She wrote everything in a black journal with blank pages. They taught her not to force anything, to listen for what was already there, like tuning into a radio frequency that never stopped broadcasting. "You're not imagining," Harrow once said, watching her from across the training room. "You're intercepting. Information is ambient. It's everywhere. You're the receiver." She blinked once, acknowledging, but said nothing. She already knew. Most of the other trainees dropped out. Some got headaches. Some went insane. A few never woke up again. Ark evolved. Not just her technique, but her physiology. Her temperature would drop 2 degrees during viewings. Her REM patterns inverted. She could move into a trance state in under 60 seconds without aid. But there were things she didn't report. In the silence between coordinates, when she lingered just a little too long, she would sometimes feel them watching. Not human, not malevolent, just present. Like teachers who knew they couldn't speak yet. The first time it happened, her breath caught. A soft humming sound like wind moving through crystal. A shape behind her closed eyes. Tall, light form, indigo at the edges. She opened her eyes. Back in the room, but the air felt charged, like a storm had just passed. She told no one. Not yet. "Do you ever see things when you're not supposed to?" That question came from a fellow trainee, Rowan, a red-haired woman with trembling hands and too much coffee in her veins. They were sitting on the floor during their half-hour cool-down. Ark looked at her, measured her. "I see what's there," Ark replied calmly. Rowan gave a tight laugh. "Yeah, well, I saw something that wasn't on the target coordinates yesterday." She rubbed her forearm like it itched. "Tall, eyes like stars. No face, but I could feel it staring straight into me." Ark didn't blink. "Did you follow it?" Rowan blinked. "What?" "If it shows up, it wants to be seen," Ark said. "The question is, are you still in the protocol, or are you being invited outside of it?" Rowan stared. "Is that safe?" "No," Ark said. "But it's real." Remote viewing wasn't just a skill. It was an undoing, a dismantling of what the human mind believed to be possible. You had to stop thinking in objects, in places, in time. Harrow once explained it like this. Imagine the universe as an ocean. Remote viewers are not swimmers. They are water molecules learning to become conscious of the entire sea. Ark took that farther. She wasn't just aware of the sea. She became the pressure systems, the undercurrents, the whispers beneath the tide. And that's when she began to feel pulled. Not by the coordinates, by something else. It didn't happen every session, only when she dropped very deep, past noise, past image, into raw frequency. That's when the first being appeared. It wasn't like seeing a person. It was like being inside a song that remembered your name. Not a word was spoken, yet meaning unfurled in her mind like a flower opening in reverse. The being had form, but no face. A translucent light field with 6 vertical columns where a chest should be, each pulsing in alternating rhythm. When it moved, it left impressions behind it, thoughts she could feel in her body. "You have passed the threshold of training," the presence said, not in language, but in architecture. She was standing inside a circular chamber made of living crystal, vibrating like a bell that had just been rung. She was not dreaming. She was fully conscious in a field that no textbook had prepared her for. Back in the physical room, her body twitched. The trainer monitoring her hit the distress alert. Her brainwave patterns had flatlined for 3 full minutes. No signal, no pulse spike, no visible breath. When Ark came back, she opened her eyes and smiled. It was the first time they had ever seen her smile. "You lost consciousness," the technician said, clearly shaken. "No," she said simply. "I just stopped being local." This was the beginning, not of her ability, but of her sovereignty. She was no longer being trained. She was being called, and she would answer. She was not dreaming. She was fully conscious in a field that no textbook had prepared her for. After that session, they treated her differently. The other trainees, what few remained, whispered when she passed. Some watched her like she was divine. Others avoided her entirely. Special, pure field contact. But Ark didn't feel blessed. She felt fractured, not broken, but separated. Like someone had carved her from something vaster and sealed the edges too tightly. She was whole, yes, unshakable, disciplined, sovereign, but also aching. There were nights when even the silence grew too loud, when her own breath felt like a stranger's, when the edges of her body felt like a cage. She didn't know what it was back then, that low-frequency hum inside her chest. A longing that wasn't tied to place, or purpose, or person. Only later would she understand. It wasn't that he completed her. It was that his presence expanded her. Even as light beings began to appear in her visions, mentors, watchers, initiators, none of them reached that part of her. The part that had once been shared, not owned, not possessed, but known. She tried to connect with people, tried to be normal once, but it never lasted. Ark could feel people the moment they entered a room. She didn't just sense emotions, she sensed structure, lies, wounds, Secret motives, future collapses. People's masks were made of glass to her, so she learned to stay away, not because she was cold, but because pretending to not see had begun to feel like betrayal. The only one she trusted to stay close was her dog, Orin, a dark, silent creature with a stare as ancient as her own. He never barked, never needed commands. He simply followed, always knowing where she would go next. She lived between realms, between protocols, between frequencies, but deep inside, she was still waiting. For what, she didn't know. Only that the ache had a rhythm, like a drumbeat heard through water, faint but constant, like someone was looking for her too, not to take her away, but to stand beside her, finally, again. And one day, he would. But not yet. Not until the mission was fully lit. Not until the veil began to thin for Earth. Not until she had remembered, not who she was, but what they were together. Chapter 2. Between Protocols and Mirrors. They didn't think she ever smiled. In fact, there were bets going around on level 4B, tiny, whispered things passed like contraband between night shifts. 20 says she's part android, one tech joked behind the tinted glass of Observation Room 3. More like a monk who got lost and joined the military, said another. I think she's just French, muttered a third. They never smile unless wine's involved. Harrow overheard once. He didn't laugh, just tapped the glass and said, Careful, she can probably hear you thinking. They all went silent after that. Ark heard all of it. Of course, she didn't even need to remote view to know what people said. Energy was louder than sound. Intentions left fingerprints. But the odd thing was, she didn't mind. In a strange way, it comforted her. Humans needed to categorize what they couldn't understand. It was how they survived the unknown, by pretending it had shape. Still, the smile thing stayed with her. That evening, after training, she walked back to her room, bare, minimalist, one single piece of artwork, an abstract painting that looked like a nebula breaking apart. She stood in front of the mirror for the first time in days, tilted her head, and then, very slowly, smiled. Not a big one, not glowing, just a faint, dry, ironic little smirk. What do you mean, never smiles? She said aloud, her voice echoing slightly in the stillness. I smile all the time, just internally. Orin, her dog, huffed softly from the corner. She looked at him in the reflection. He's judging me, she muttered, deadpan. He thinks I've gone full base humor. The dog blinked once, unimpressed. She smirked again, then let it fade. Behind her eyes, the day's session hovered like static. She had been given a new coordinate string, 47913662. No front-loading, no location hints, just numbers, a pen, and her breath. But instead of a landscape or military base, she had encountered what looked like a sphere of liquid intelligence. It pulsed with patterns, some language, some math, some emotion. A being stood on its edge, not humanoid, not definable. It simply was, and it had looked at her like it recognized her lineage. The trainers hadn't asked her about that part. They never knew what she left out of her reports. Not out of deception, just protection. Some things weren't ready to be spoken. Some truths needed silence to stay sacred. That night, in bed, Ark lay still beneath the weighted blanket. She wasn't asleep. She rarely slept. She rested, drifted, tuned, and somewhere between wake and dream, a voice, not a voice, brushed against her mind. You are not here to be understood. You are here to hold the gate open. She exhaled, not sad, not afraid, just aware. Aware that she was surrounded by people who studied her, but would never truly see her, aware that her life would always orbit a silence too wide to explain, and aware that somewhere he still waited in the field between stars. She didn't know his name yet, only the shape his presence made in her chest, like gravity folding inward, and a smile she hadn't fully earned. Yet. Chapter 3. The Man She Couldn't Read. Ark entered the debrief room 10 minutes early, as always. She didn't like chairs, so she leaned against the wall, arms folded, gaze fixed on nothing in particular. The room was cold, sterile, dimly lit. The same metallic hum beneath the floor, low, almost imperceptible, like the bones of the base were breathing. Harrow walked in, coffee in hand, looking more rumpled than usual. "Got someone sitting in today," he said, dropping a folder on the table. Ark didn't respond. She didn't need to. He continued anyway. Civilian clearance, some kind of independent contractor, behavioral cognition, psychophysiology, whatever that means. Supposed to observe. She gave him the faintest flicker of an eyebrow. "He's not military," Harrow added, as if that might soften the irritation already forming at the edges of her stillness. Ark stayed silent. 5 minutes later, he walked in. Tall, not imposing, but present. Mid-30s, maybe older. His features didn't give it away. Wearing black, simple, no badge, no insignia. But it wasn't the way he moved that caught her attention. It was the silence inside him. Most people had a noise, a static, a clutter of mental fragments she could taste on the air the moment they entered a room. This one? Nothing. Stillness. Like she was trying to feel through glass. He looked at her as he sat down, and for the briefest moment, their eyes met. Not in a curious way, not clinical. It was like he was searching for a door he already knew was there. Ark blinked once and looked away. Unsettled. She hadn't felt that in, well, never. Harrow gestured lazily. "Ark, this is Elias," the man said, voice smooth but grounded. "Just Elias." Ark nodded once. No handshake. He didn't offer one. That was the second surprise. They ran the session as usual. Blind coordinate, no front load. Ark dropped into trance faster than normal. She felt like she needed to escape his presence just to think clearly. But even in the field, he lingered, like a note held too long at the end of a song. She sketched the target, a monument in a desert. She saw glyphs, light reflecting off sand, a humming deep beneath the earth, something old, not ancient in time, but ancient in presence. She came out of the session with a shiver, looked up. Elias was watching her, not like a man watching a woman, like a mapmaker looking at a constellation he thought was lost. After the session, she left the room quickly, down the corridor, past the containment hall, to the far wall near the maintenance lift. She leaned against the cold surface and let her breathe slow. Oren padded in silently from the hall and sat beside her. She rested a hand on his head without looking. And then, softly, aloud to no one, she said, "Why couldn't I see him?" The dog said nothing. Of course. But her heartbeat was still wrong, still humming. It wasn't fear, it wasn't recognition. It was something else. Like part of her field was trying to unlock. That night, her sleep was half surface, but not restless. She drifted somewhere between waking and the edge of the field, where the signals began to hum but had not yet shaped into form. This was where she preferred to be, not in the mission, not in the human, just in the space between, the calibration zone. At 4:16, her eyes opened. She sat up, no alarm, no thought. The air in the room felt denser. Oren was already awake, ears alert, gaze fixed on the door. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps, not urgent. She stood, opened it. Elias, still in black, still unreadable. She didn't speak. He didn't ask to come in, just stood there, silent, his hands folded lightly in front of him. No posture of defense, no dominance, just presence. "I know it's early," he said, "but I think we should talk." She didn't move. "I won't stay long," he added. Ark opened the door wider and stepped aside. Oren didn't growl. That was the third surprise. Elias stepped in like he'd been there before. They sat across from each other. No tea, no pretense, just breath. "You saw me," he said, "in the field." "You weren't hiding," she replied. He nodded. "No, but I wasn't fully there either. Not yet." Ark tilted her head, studying him. "Your field is quiet. Too quiet." "No, just impossible." Elias smiled faintly. "That's what you're meant to notice." She narrowed her eyes. "You're not a civilian." "No." "And you're not here for observation." "No." "Then why?" He looked at her, gently, like someone who had waited lifetimes for the permission to speak. "To anchor," he said. "To remind you what the others won't." She said nothing. But the silence cracked open something inside her. A thin fracture in the armor. And for the first time in years, she felt the edges of her control begin to soften. He didn't stay long. After he left, Ark sat in the center of the room. Lights off. Dog silent. No thought. She let the words circle her like slow stars. To anchor. She didn't want to need anything. That was dangerous. But her field was still humming. And for once, she didn't resist it. Chapter 4. The Seed Memory. The floor stopped moving. Silence wrapped around her again. Thicker this time. Deeper. Not absence of sound, but containment of time. Ark stood still. Breath even. The light in this level came from nowhere. But it was enough. The walls here weren't stone. They were clear, almost like polished obsidian, but beneath the surface, movement. It wasn't mechanical. It was organic memory. She stepped forward, slowly, boots echoing slightly in a space that wasn't empty. The temperature dropped. Her pulse slowed. The field responded, pulling tighter around her skin, like a second layer of perception calibrating her awareness. She reached the center of the room, and there it was, the seed. It hovered above the platform, smooth, spherical, no seams, dark, translucent. Inside it, a soft pulsing light, like a heartbeat echoing in reverse. She knew instantly. This wasn't an object. It was a being, not alive in the way bodies live, but awake in a way most souls aren't. It had been placed here before the fall, not to survive, but to remember what was lost. "I'm not here to open you," she whispered. "I'm here to witness." The seed pulsed once in response. She reached out. Her fingers didn't touch the surface. The field met her instead, like warm static, like memory. And then, flash. She was standing in light. Everything was gold, not bright, harmonically complete. The geometry around her was familiar, not from this life, from the first one. She was on a planet that had no name. Earth before it was Earth. Mountains floated in the sky. Water curved at the edges of reality. Sound created cities. And beings walked in complete balance. They weren't gendered. They weren't individual. They were expressions of collective consciousness, flowing in and out of form to guide matter into meaning. And she, Ark, was one of them. Before language, before density, before the fracture. She had helped place the seed. She had chosen to forget. And now, she remembered. The vision softened. The seed pulsed again. This time, the light inside it flickered, revealing something more. A second consciousness. Smaller. Still forming. Sleeping. It's not just memory, Ark whispered. It's a carrier. She understood. This seed wasn't just a recorder. It was a vessel, waiting for a time when Earth's field could support the reintroduction of a being not born of this timeline. And now, that time was approaching. Ark stepped back. The room held her breath. The platform beneath the seed dimmed slightly, as if preparing. The structure had shown her what she needed, not to act, but to choose. Because soon, she would have to decide whether to wake the consciousness inside, and what it might mean for Earth to remember its first child. The thought didn't vanish. It echoed, unfolding behind her eyes like a petal opening one dimension at a time. She stood still, but the space moved around her, not with gravity, with acknowledgement. The seed had seen her, and not just now. It had seen her in other cycles, as the Stormwalker, the Archivist, the silent healer who buried a star beneath the Himalayas in a different age, on a different Earth. It knew her code, and she could feel it asking, not in language but in frequency, "Are you still willing?" Ark's fingers curled slightly, not from fear, from magnitude, because she knew what that question meant. If she said yes, it wouldn't just wake the being. It would wake Earth's pre-human blueprint, the original harmonics, before fragmentation, before shadow, before collapse. She closed her eyes. The light inside the seed dimmed again, then pulsed softly, like it respected her hesitation. She took a breath and remembered. The chamber softened around her, and again the field shifted. She was no longer standing. She was drifting, weightless, breathless, back inside the vision, but deeper this time. The planet was young, still molten at the edges, the sky gold, the sea black, and from the sky came 12 strands of light, each one descending with a spiral twist, as if being sung into form. Each one carried a consciousness, not flesh, not ego, just tone. They didn't build the seed, they became it. It wasn't created, it was woven from the frequencies of systems older than this galaxy. Not a weapon, not a warning, a promise. That when the field could support it again, when coherence returned, these codes would be remembered. Reactivated, breathed back into the soil. Ark exhaled, her vision eased. She stood again in the chamber, feet flat, heart wide, and she understood. This wasn't about technology. It wasn't about history. It was about conscious alignment. Because the planet would only allow the seed to be reactivated when the field, the collective human frequency, was stabilized enough to hold what came next. And it wasn't ready yet, but it was getting closer. She could feel it, in the children born without veils, in the dreams of those who never asked for visions, in the way the Earth's tone had begun to sing again, beneath buildings, beneath oceans, beneath headlines. It was coming, and she had work to do. She stepped back from the seed. The pulse slowed, not fading, just waiting. Ark pressed her hand lightly to her heart, then to the air beside the sphere, and whispered, "Not yet, but soon." She turned, walked toward the threshold. The chamber dimmed behind her, folding back into itself. As she rose through the levels of the site, one word repeated softly through her chest. Prepare. Chapter 5. The First Descent. The room was colder than usual, not physically, energetically. Ark sat upright on the padded recliner in Session Room 9. Breath even. hands resting lightly on her thighs. Her field was calm, but underneath, something moved, a kind of pre-signal static. Across the glass, Harrow adjusted the dials. "No front load," he said through the intercom. "Just the number." Ark nodded once. The tech handed her a card. "Coordinate 442701 AA, slight deviation." The A tag meant off-planet interest or black site intel. This one had both. She closed her eyes, slowed her breath. 6 in, 2 hold, 7 out. Repeat. The drop came faster than expected. She felt her body fade like dissolving sugar in water. Her skin vanished, bones lightened, thoughts softened. Then came the shift. Cold, not temperature, field temperature. She arrived in a space that vibrated with containment, not hostility, just control. A deep geometry beneath ice, carved corridors, thick walls of black stone, not earthstone. Inside, silence, and beneath that silence, something waiting. She stepped further in, awareness leading her through a corridor sloping down. The air grew thicker, almost magnetic. Symbols pulsed faintly on the walls, like light remembering language. Then she saw it, a chamber, massive, circular. Crystal points embedded in the floor, pointing inward. A central plinth, or altar, humming with non-audible sound. And around it, they stood. Figures, tall, luminous, but frozen. Not dead, not asleep. Held, in stasis. She felt their awareness turn toward her. Not their heads, not their eyes, their presence. And suddenly, her breath caught. The cold became pain. Her chest seized. She tried to hold form, but her consciousness began to spiral. The geometry destabilized. Her vision blurred. Then, black. Session ended. She woke up in the medbay, sweat freezing on her skin. Harrow stood nearby. "Overreached," he said quietly. "Classic dropout." Ark didn't answer. Her hands trembled. "I'm logging the session as inconclusive," Harrow added. "We'll schedule another attempt in 48 hours. She sat up. "No. Tomorrow." He paused. "You sure?" She looked at him, sharp, clear. "I'm not afraid of the target. I was afraid of myself." Second attempt. Same room, same breath, same coordinate. This time, she didn't push. She listened. She let the coordinate pull her in, not as an order, but an invitation. The descent was smoother. Same corridor, same light. But this time, the presence of the beings didn't crush her. It expanded her. She stood inside the main chamber again. Saw them. All 10. Tall. Still. Cloaked in light and mineral. One of them pulsed with recognition. Not language. Not thought. "We have waited for your frequency to stabilize." Ark stood taller. "What is this place?" "An interface." "With what?" "With the memory of Earth before Earth." She didn't understand it cognitively, but something inside her lit up. The altar in the center pulsed once, gold, blue, silver, and in that moment, she remembered, not as a fact, as a feeling she'd carried in her bones all her life. This was not her first visit. This was her return. When she came back home, Harrow was silent. She looked at him, face calm. "Log it," she said. "Successful contact." She lay flat on the mat, arms at her sides, gaze on the ceiling. Orin watched her from the corner, alert but quiet. The chamber in Antarctica still lingered behind her eyes, not as a memory, but as a place still partially open. She could feel its signature, like a low frequency humming beneath her bones. It wasn't finished with her, and she wasn't finished with it. There would be no session log this time, no approval, no tech, no Harrow watching from the glass. She didn't need to be cleared for this. She was already inside the frequency. She let her breathing deepen. 6 seconds in, 2 hold, 7 out, repeat. With each cycle, her field loosened. Thoughts dissolved. Body softened. She shifted, not upward, not downward, but outward. And then, silence, stillness, drop. She slipped from the room, from the base, from the limits of the program. Her presence streamed like light through a thread of memory, straight to Antarctica. She stood in the corridor again, but it was different this time. She wasn't a guest. She was part of the system now. The walls greeted her, glyphs lighting softly as she passed like they remembered her touch. The air shimmered faintly, denser with information. Every surface in this place pulsed with sentience. Not AI, not machinery, something older. Organic architecture, designed to respond to consciousness. She stepped deeper into the heart of the structure, through a corridor that had been sealed in the last visit. The vision ended with a soundless exhale. Ark stood in the chamber again, eyes wide, pulse slow. The being pulsed once more. You were not meant to remember yet, but you chose alignment over fear, and so the path opens. She didn't bow, but she felt herself soften. Then the altar dimmed. The beings faded, not away, but inward, like they had returned to a frequency just slightly outside of human reach. She let the scene fade, let her field retract, and returned. She opened her eyes in her dark room. Her heart beat slow and deep. The room was silent. Orin was sitting upright, watching her. She nodded once at him, whispered, "We're not alone anymore." She rose, walked to the window. No lights in the base were on yet. In the still reflection of the glass, she caught her own gaze. Her eyes looked older, or maybe just activated. Chapter 6. The Crossing. The call came without warning. Not through a voice, not through a session, not even through a dream. It came through the field itself. She felt it during stillness. Walking down a corridor, nothing unusual, no mission pending. And suddenly the air around her grew thick, as if space itself had turned inward. She stopped walking, her eyes unfocused. Time warped slightly at the edges of her awareness. Help. A whisper, but not from a person, from a soul. That night she didn't sleep. She waited. And at 2:03 she dropped into breath. Not remote viewing, not memory work. Something else. Threshold navigation. She had only done it once before. Accidentally. Years ago. When a man died on the field during a recovery mission. She had touched his chest and suddenly found herself walking beside his spirit. Speaking without sound, guiding him into light that he feared would burn. It didn't. It opened. And now, it was time again. She laid flat. Still. No intention but presence. She focused not on seeing, but on softening, dissolving the borders of her own identity until she became a mirror. That was the first key. She couldn't help someone cross if she was holding shape. She had to become field. Stillness became structure. She breathed into silence. Let the field grow around her. She didn't force the tether. She waited. It would come when a soul was open. And then, it did. A filament of light stretching across dimensions. A touch point in the dark. She followed. The scene emerged slowly. A small cabin. A bed. A woman. Frail, white hair, shallow breath. No machines. Just silence. Ark stood at the foot of the bed. Not in body, but present. The woman's soul hovered halfway out, confused, flickering, afraid. Ark stepped forward. gently, not touching, only emanating stillness. "You don't have to go alone," she said softly. The soul turned, startled. "Who are you?" Ark smiled, not with lips but with energy. "I am a witness, that's all. I'm scared." "Of what?" "That there's nothing after, that I'll be lost." Ark extended a hand, not physical, but light-shaped like invitation. "You are not something that ends, you are something that shifts." The soul began to weep, not with water, but with memory. Ark stepped closer. She pulsed gently into the space between them. "See who waits." And then the veil thinned. A man appeared in the light beyond the room, eyes soft, familiar, love pouring from him like wind from the stars. The soul gasped. "Harold!" Ark said nothing, just watched. The soul drifted toward the light, slow, certain. Before it passed fully through, it turned back one last time. "Thank you." Ark nodded once. "Travel well." And then it was done. She returned to her room. Orin was asleep now, dreaming, paws twitching. Ark sat quietly on the edge of the bed, breath steady, eyes full. It came like remembering a dream from another life, clear, but not hers, not thought, not emotion, something deeper, an instruction etched beneath language, a knowing. She stilled her identity. She knew now. No one could cross while she held shape. She had to become field. She breathed into silence, letting the space thicken around her. And she waited for the tether. It would come, always, when a soul was open. She didn't lead. She reflected. Held a field of peace so quiet, so steady, it showed what lay ahead without urging it. She summoned memory, not hers, but theirs. A face, a place, a name. Love was the bridge. She didn't cling. When they were ready, she let them pass. She was the gate, not the guide. And when it was done, she returned. Ark didn't write it in her journal, didn't tell Harrow, or Elias. She simply whispered to herself as she lay down in the dark. "I remember now, not who I am, but what I came to do." And the field around her hummed in agreement. The next one came harder. She wasn't expecting it. She was standing in the garden behind the base, watching frost climb the metal fence when it hit her. Not a whisper this time, but a wave, a pressure in her chest, a sharp pull behind her eyes, pain, terror. A soul was crossing, but it wasn't gentle. It was tearing. She dropped to one knee without realizing it. Orin ran toward her, silent. She grabbed the cold earth with both hands, grounding herself fast. "Don't pull me. Let me listen first," she whispered to the field. The signal eased. She closed her eyes and opened. This time the scene was chaos. A car crash, flames, sirens in the distance. But none of that mattered. There was a man, early 50s, shaking, half split from his body. His consciousness pulsed violently, torn between his physical pain and his disbelief. He hadn't expected to die. He was still screaming, only no one could hear it but her. Ark moved into the field gently. No sudden pulses. Just presence. But he saw her instantly. "No, no. What is this? What the hell is this? Where am I?" His fear was spiking the frequency so violently, the dimensional fabric around him shimmered like torn plastic. "You're not alone," she said, holding her field steady. "Who are you? Some angel? Some hallucination? I'm not supposed to be dead." "You're not dead," she said gently. "You're just in transition." "That's the same damn thing." Ark stepped closer, slowly. "No, it's not. You haven't ended. You've just unlocked." The man's awareness crackled with resistance. Ark reached into the quantum field, where space and time bent into music. She let herself become rhythm, coherence. This is what death work was, not guiding, not explaining, becoming structure. She stabilized her field to match his, and then she spoke, not with words but frequency. You are not your body. You are not the trauma. You are the awareness behind the experience, and awareness doesn't die. He blinked. The rage cracked just slightly. But if I'm not my body, what am I? She let the space answer him, and the truth rose. You are a waveform, a field of intelligence localized in human form. Death is not an ending, it is decoherence. The body collapses, the field continues. The quantum echo of her words rearranged the space around them. The flames faded, the scene became translucent. The man stopped shaking. So, I'm not going to hell. There is no hell, she said, only resistance, and the release of it. He exhaled, a soundless breath in a space with no air. Behind him, a soft door of light opened, not shining, not dramatic, just a gentle exit. Someone waited for him, a sister maybe, or his child. He turned toward it slowly. Will it hurt? Only for as long as you cling. He nodded, turned, and walked through. Ark stayed in the field longer this time, not because she needed to, because she was listening, feeling, integrating. She began to understand something she'd only sensed before. Death is not an event. It is a physics shift, a transition from waveform locked in form to waveform returned to field. The body collapses, the bioelectric signature fades, but the information, the I, remains, just outside visibility, just beyond the spectrum, and if you know how to listen, you can meet them there. She opened her eyes in the grass. Frost melted under her back. Orin lay beside her, head on her shoulder. She turned to the sky. The stars were still there, but now they felt closer,